She tried to escape the forced marriage, but the heartless millionaire held her like his last hope. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. Snow fell in thick, quiet sheets over Denver that night, soft enough to look peaceful, but heavy enough to crush the little house where 18-year-old Sophie Walker stood frozen in her living room. A stranger in a black cashmere coat waited in front of her, a leather briefcase at his feet, his expression colder than the winter storm outside. He held out a document, no decoration, no flourish, just an ultimatum carved into paper. "Daniel Hayes will clear your brother's gambling debt," he said, voice steady, almost bored. "In exchange, you will marry him. Tonight." Sophie's breath evaporated into the air like something dying. Daniel Hayes, the 40-year-old tech billionaire, whose name people in Colorado said with equal parts awe and warning. Brilliant, ruthless, divorced, untouchable. A man she had never met, a man who now demanded her as payment. Her mother wept quietly on the couch. Her brother knelt beside Sophie's legs, gripping her jeans like a drowning man begging for rescue. "Sophie, please," he choked out. "If I go to court, I'm finished. They'll put me away. He's the only one willing to help." But the lawyer wasn't finished. He looked straight into Sophie's eyes, gaze like a scalpel. "Mr. Hayes asked me to deliver one additional message." He paused. "He said you once saved his life, though he doubts you would remember." Her heart stopped one clean, violent beat, then stumbled back to life in confusion. Saved his life when, how she had no memory of ever meeting a billionaire, much less rescuing one. Yet something in the lawyer's tone sent an unease spiraling down her spine. He opened the folder, slipped out a marriage license, and placed a gold pen on top. "Sign here, Miss Walker. Once you do, the debt is gone forever." Sophie looked around the room at her mother's shaking hands, at her brother's desperate eyes, at the life she barely owned, yet was somehow losing. She should have screamed. She should have refused. She should have run. But instead, her fingers closed around the pen, her name spilling across the line like a surrender she didn't even fully understand. 2 hours later, a black SUV waited outside, engine rumbling in the snow. The lawyer escorted her to the back seat without a word. The city blurred past, the window neon signs, passing headlights, Christmas lights half buried under frost. Everything familiar yet slipping away. Her phone vibrated. A video call request flashed across the screen. Daniel Hayes. Her pulse jumped. She accepted. He appeared in perfect clarity. Sharp jaw, tired eyes, dark hair slightly disheveled, as if he'd been fighting sleep for days. His face was striking, but there was something unsettling beneath the polish, an ache buried deep, a shadow he kept hidden. "Sophie Walker," he said, voice low, deep enough to settle in her bones. "Are you coming?" She swallowed. "I signed the papers." For a moment something flickered through his expression, relief, regret, she couldn't tell. "Good," he murmured. Then softer, almost like a confession, "I'll take care of everything else." The call ended before she could ask him what everything else meant. The SUV stopped at Denver City Hall. There was no music, no flowers, no guests. Just two overworked clerks, the biting cold, and the weight of a decision she couldn't undo. When the doors opened again, footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Daniel Hayes walked into the room. He wasn't wearing a coat despite the storm. Snow clung to his shoulders like he'd walked through the night without noticing. His presence filled the chamber instantly, quiet power, effortless authority, and eyes that looked at her as if trying to piece something together. "Sophie," he said, saying her name for the first time. It sounded strange, intimate, too heavy for such a small space. She stiffened. "Why me?" He didn't smile. "Because I made a promise a long time ago." His gaze lingered on her face, softer now, almost haunted. "And because you once saved me when no one else did." She startled, breath catching, as the words from earlier resurfaced. "I don't remember that." "I know," he replied. The ceremony was short, signatures, nods, murmured instructions. Two strangers binding their fates under fluorescent lights. When they finished, Daniel took her hand. Not romantically, not possessively, but gently like touching something fragile. "You won't have to be afraid," he murmured. "This is only a contract marriage. For now." "For now," she echoed. He leaned closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "There will come a day, Sophie, when you'll understand why this was never just a contract." She didn't know what that meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. But as he guided her out into the snow, his hand warm at her back, she felt a question she couldn't silence rising inside her. What kind of man looked at his young bride, a stranger, and saw a memory she couldn't recall? And why did that scare her more than the marriage itself? The drive to Boulder felt unreal, a blur of winding mountain roads and snow-dusted pine trees flashing past the window. Sophie sat stiffly in the back seat of the SUV, her wedding ring thin, simple, far too adult cold against her skin. Every mile pulling her farther from Denver made the air feel tighter, as if she were being slowly sealed into a new life she didn't choose. When the gates finally opened, the Hayes estate appeared like something lifted out of another world. Glass walls, warm amber lights, clean lines stretching toward the Rockies. Beautiful, silent, enormous. Sophie stepped out slowly, boots crunching over fresh snow, and for a moment she wondered if the house itself was judging her. The front doors opened before she could knock. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and impeccable posture smiled politely. "Welcome, Mrs. Hayes. My name is Margaret. I manage the household." Mrs. Hayes. Sophie barely held her breath steady. Margaret led her through the foyer into a living room so large it seemed to swallow sound. A fire crackled in a stone hearth. Everything smelled faintly of cedar and citrus. No sign of Daniel yet. "Mr. Hayes prepared your room," Margaret said, handing Sophie a key card. "He said you might be tired after the ceremony." "Prepared my room," Sophie echoed. Plural as in, not the same. "You'll see," Margaret replied gently. Sophie followed her upstairs. The hallway alone felt like its own world, minimalist art on the walls, warm lights, silent stretching endlessly. Margaret stopped in front of a door at the far end. "This is yours." Sophie stepped inside and froze. The room wasn't lavish, no chandelier or gold detailing, but it was her. Soft cream walls, warm lighting shelves filled with classic novels. She loved a guitar exactly like the one she lost years ago in a movie. Polaroid film on the desk, a corkboard for mood ideas, a window seat overlooking the mountains. "How did he?" she whispered, touching the guitar strings lightly. "Mr. Hayes selected everything himself," Margaret said. "He wanted you to feel at home." No one had ever created a space for her before. The realization made her throat tighten. Margaret left her to settle in, and Sophie wandered the room slowly, fingers trailing over the bookshelf, the comforter, the window glass. Every detail felt impossibly intentional, eerily familiar, like someone had studied her life and rebuilt it from memory. Her heart stumbled. Why would a billionaire know any of this? A soft knock broke the silence. She turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled to his forearms, eyes unreadable. The house's warm lights reflected against the faint shadows under his eyes. "Is the room acceptable?" he asked. "It's perfect," she admitted. "But how did you know about the books, the guitar? I never told anyone here." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past her, straightening a picture frame on the desk. "I prefer being prepared," he said at last. "It's part of who I am." It wasn't an answer, and he knew she knew that. Before she could push further, he cleared his throat. "There are a few things we need to discuss." He handed her a thin packet, another contract. House rules. She skimmed them quickly. Separate bedrooms. No interference in each other's personal matters. Joint appearances only when necessary. Confidentiality. Boundaries clear, strict, unmistakable. "This is a contract marriage," Daniel said. "You will have privacy. I will have mine." Sophie nodded, though something in his tone felt more like he was trying to protect her than keep distance. "And in return," she asked. His jaw tightened slightly. "In return, you can live safely here, without worry." Safely. Why would she need safety? Before she could ask, Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, face tightening with some emotion she couldn't read. Without a word, he stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. The calm shattered. Sophie heard it faint but unmistakable. Daniel's voice strained low, sharp, like someone trying to steady themselves through pain. She moved closer to the door. No, it's not under control, Daniel murmured. I said, increase security. I don't care what it costs, just do it. She can't be exposed. She stepped back, heart pounding. Did he mean her? Moments later, silence. Then footsteps. Sophie hurried back toward the window, trying to look casual as Daniel re-entered. His expression had been wiped clean, smooth, controlled, but his eyes lingered on her face a beat too long. Everything all right? She asked quietly. Nothing you need to worry about, he replied. Except she was already worrying. That night, unable to sleep, Sophie wandered downstairs for water. As she passed the glass balcony overlooking the living room, she stopped. Daniel stood alone in the dark, shoulders tensed, breathing uneven, staring at nothing. A tremor ran down his hand, subtle but there. Daniel, she whispered before she could stop herself. He startled not visibly, but just enough that she noticed the flicker in his eyes. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he exhaled long and tired. For 1 second he looked his age or older, as if the weight of years pressed on him all at once. Go back to bed, Sophie, he said softly. You don't have to worry about me. She hesitated, then nodded and turned to leave. Wait, he said suddenly. She glanced back. If anyone at your agency gives you trouble, he said slowly, tell me immediately. She frowned. How would you know they would? A faint, almost pained smile tugged at his lips. People like me don't get peace. Anyone connected to me becomes a target. The words sank deep into her chest. Before she could respond, he added, just promise me. She nodded. As she walked back to her room, Sophie felt the strange truth settle over her. She didn't know Daniel Hayes at all. But somehow, he seemed to know everything about her. Sophie arrived at Vanguard Creative Agency 15 minutes early, clutching her portfolio close to her chest as the glass doors slid open. The lobby buzzed with quiet ambition, sleek furniture, glowing screens, the faint scent of roasted coffee and designer perfume. For a moment she felt a spark of excitement. This was her chance to start something real, something that belonged to her and not to Daniel Hayes or the contract that tied them together. New intern, the receptionist asked with a warm smile. Yes, Sophie nodded, adjusting her scarf. Sophie Walker, welcome to Vanguard. You're with planning department. Mr. Grant will meet you upstairs. The elevator chimed open and Sophie stepped inside, rehearsing her introduction silently. She could do this. She would do this. But the door slid open to reveal a woman leaning against the desk with arms crossed, lips curled into a smirk. Blonde hair, red lipstick, and confidence sharp enough to slice glass. Ah, she said, the famous Mrs. Hayes. Sophie froze. I'm sorry. What? The woman pushed off the desk and extended a manicured hand. Emily Hart, senior planner. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. We've heard a lot about you. Sophie swallowed hard, accepting the handshake. I'm here as an intern, nothing more. Oh, I'm sure, Emily said sweetly. Girls like you always say that. Before Sophie could respond, Grant walked in. Emily, enough. Sophie, welcome. We've got a big campaign kicking off. You'll shadow the team and work with Oasis White Spirits. Emily rolled her eyes, but stepped aside. Mr. Grant gestured Sophie toward the conference room. Your portfolio was impressive. Don't let the pace intimidate you. We value fresh perspectives here. Sophie brightened. For a moment she felt seen, not as a billionaire's young bride, but as a designer with potential. During the morning brainstorming session, Sophie listened carefully, jotting notes, absorbing everything. When Grant called for ideas, her heart pounded, but she raised her hand. What if the campaign focuses on elevation, she said, like the feeling of rising above the chaos of everyday life. Clean visuals, muted colors, a sense of clarity. The room went still. Then Grant grinned. That's actually brilliant. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Even the art director nodded approvingly. But Emily. Her smile cracked like glass. Well, Emily said, flipping her hair, looks like our little intern has thoughts. Grant ignored her. Sophie refined that idea, make it the core of the pitch deck. Sophie felt warmth bloom in her chest. Maybe she did belong here. But by lunch, the atmosphere shifted. Emily cornered her near the break room, coffee cup in hand. Listen carefully, she said, voice low. Vanguard is built on merit. People work for years for opportunities like yours. So, when a teenager married to a billionaire waltzes in, I didn't waltz anywhere, Sophie said quietly. Emily laughed. Right, of course. You just happened to marry Colorado's most powerful man. Sophie's jaw tightened. My marriage is not your business, sweetheart, Emily said, leaning closer. Everything about you becomes my business when your existence threatens mine. And with a flick of her wrist, Emily pretended to trip, sending hot coffee splashing across Sophie's blouse and her printed draft notes. Gasps echoed behind them. Oh no, Emily cooed dramatically. You should really be more careful. Sophie's cheeks burned. She held tightly to the soaked papers, refusing to break. I'm fine, she said through clenched teeth. Emily smirked and walked away. A junior designer whispered, Don't worry about her. She acts like she owns the place. Sophie forced a smile, but inside she shook. She changed her blouse in the restroom, rewrote the notes from memory, and returned to work. She would not fold. Not now. By late afternoon, she had nearly finished rebuilding her pitch deck. Exhausted but proud, she gathered her things and headed toward the exit. The moment she stepped outside, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, the window lowered. Daniel. Cold winter light hit his features sharp, controlled, unreadable. But when he saw her stained blouse and red eyes, something changed. His expression darkened, jaw locking. Sophie, he said, voice low, get in. Her heart thumped. She hesitated. Daniel, you didn't have to come. Get in, he repeated softer but no less commanding. She obeyed. Inside the car's warmth, Daniel looked at her with eyes that saw too much. Who did this? It's nothing, she whispered. Just work. Daniel leaned back, assessing her carefully. Someone humiliated you. It's not your problem, she insisted. This job is my responsibility. Please don't. He reached out, brushing a thumb across a faint coffee stain on her collar. The touch was surprisingly gentle. When someone hurts you, he said quietly, it becomes my problem. Sophie's breath trembled. Daniel, please. Don't interfere at Vanguard. His gaze sharpened. Vanguard exists because of my investments. I can dismantle the entire leadership tomorrow if I want. She stiffened. You can't. Watch me, he said. No, Daniel. Sophie snapped the panic in her voice, startling them both. If you intervene, they'll never see me as anything but your wife. I'll lose any chance I have to earn my place. Silence. Then Daniel exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Fine, he murmured. But if anyone harms you again, you will tell me. Immediately. She nodded reluctantly. Daniel tapped the partition, signaling the driver. Take us home. But as they pulled away, Sophie noticed something, the blinds on the second-floor office window shifting. Emily stood behind them, staring down at the SUV with an expression of shock fury and dawning realization. Because now she had seen him. Now she knew exactly who Sophie's husband was. And Sophie understood with a sinking dread that Emily Hart would not stop here. Sophie barely slept that night. Even wrapped beneath the thick duvet in her Mountain View room, her mind spun in restless circles. Emily's glare, Daniel's unexpected appearance outside her workplace, the strange protective edge in his voice. None of it made sense. And beneath all of that, something deeper tugged at her, the feeling that Daniel was hiding more than he admitted. Something heavy, something painful. She woke before sunrise and wandered downstairs, the house still quiet. The living room glowed faintly with the dying embers of last night's fire. She stepped toward the kitchen for water, then paused. A soft rhythmic sound echoed through the hallway. Thud, thud, thud. Curiosity drew her toward the gym. Through the glass door, she saw Daniel, alone, barehanded, striking the heavy bag with sharp, controlled force. His breath was uneven, his movements too rigid. He wasn't training, he was unraveling. Daniel, she whispered before she could stop herself. He froze mid-punch. For a moment he stood motionless, shoulders tense, chest rising and falling too quickly. Then he turned, eyes shadowed. You're up early, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. He straightened his posture immediately, the mask snapping back into place. I heard you, she said softly. Are you... Okay, I'm fine, he replied too quickly. Go get some breakfast, I'll join you shortly. But when he passed her, his hand trembled, just slightly, enough for her to see, enough for her heart to twist. She ate alone. The dining room felt impossibly large. Later, after a shower, she lingered outside his office, drawn to the mystery that gnawed at her. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the desk lamp was on, illuminating a thin, worn leather notebook and a framed photo lying face down. She shouldn't look. She knew that, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She stepped inside, lifted the frame, and turned it over. Her breath caught. The photo was taken at night, emergency lights flashing, a damaged car, a man on the ground, and a young girl, maybe 14, standing just a few feet away. Blonde hair, familiar stance, a hoodie she once owned. It looked like her. It looked exactly like her. Her hand trembled as she touched the glass. "You shouldn't be in here." She spun around, letting out a startled gasp. Daniel stood in the doorway, expression unreadable but unmistakably tense. I'm sorry," she stammered. "I was just curious," he finished, stepping inside and closing the door gently behind him. "I know." He took the frame from her carefully, as if it were something fragile, something sacred. "Who is she?" Sophie asked. "Why do you have this?" He hesitated. For a heartbeat, she thought he might actually tell her the truth. But then the shutters came down in his eyes again. "It's complicated," he said quietly, "and I'm not ready to talk about it." His voice wasn't cold, just weary, guarded, afraid. Sophie swallowed. "Daniel, is this connected to why you said I once saved you?" Daniel's gaze flickered, but he said nothing. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken fears and forgotten memories. Sophie took a slow breath. "Why do you know so much about me?" she whispered. "The books, the guitar, the room. How did you know all of that?" Daniel turned away. "I learned what I need to learn. That's not an answer." "No," he said softly. "It isn't." Before she could press further, his phone rang. He checked the screen, jaw tightening, not in irritation but in dread. "I need to take this." He stepped outside the office, closing the door behind him. Sophie moved closer, unable to help herself. His voice was low but jagged around the edges. "No, he's not supposed to be anywhere near Denver." A pause. "I don't care what it takes. Find him before he comes near her." Her blood ran cold. Her. He was talking about her. She backed away, heart pounding, as Daniel re-entered the office. He froze when he saw the look on her face. "Sophie, who is he?" she demanded, voice trembling. "And why do you think I'm in danger?" Daniel looked pained. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" she pressed. He exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "Sophie, there are parts of my past that I hoped would never touch you, but things are changing. Someone I thought was gone may be trying to resurface." "And that photo," she asked, "is he connected to that?" A long silence. Finally, Daniel murmured, "Yes, in ways I'm not ready for you to know." "But I deserve to know," she said, voice cracking. "You keep acting like you're protecting me, but you won't even tell me from what." He moved closer, expression softening. "I am protecting you." "From who?" "From what?" she whispered. Daniel reached out, brushing his fingers along her cheek. Not romantic, not possessive, just gentle, almost sad. "When the time comes," he said quietly, "I'll tell you everything, but right now, knowing would only put you in more danger." His words sent a chill through her. Before she could reply, he stepped back toward the door. "You should get ready for work," he said. "And Sophie, yes, if anything happens at that agency, anything at all, you tell me immediately." She nodded, though her heart raced with fear she couldn't name. As she left his office, she glanced back. The desk lamp still glowed, illuminating the photo he had turned face down again. But she had seen enough to know one thing: Daniel Hayes wasn't just hiding something from her. He was hiding her from something. Sophie arrived at Vanguard the next morning, determined to focus. She needed the Oasis pitch finished, needed the job, needed something, anything that belonged to her alone. She buried herself in slides and sketches, ignoring the whispers drifting across the office. The clip Emily had leaked the night before was spreading fast. She could feel the stares even when no one spoke. By noon, she had nearly rebuilt the entire deck, pushing through the embarrassment, the ache, the doubt. She would not fall apart. Not here. Walker Mr. Grant called from his office. "I want your revised concept by Friday. You're leading the pitch." Her heart leapt. "Yes, sir." Emily's chair screeched on the floor. Her leading Grant didn't even look up. If you have time to complain, you have time to work. For a moment, Sophie felt proud until her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was Daniel's assistant, Mrs. Hayes. Mr. Hayes requests your presence at the Hayes family brunch this afternoon. Transportation has been arranged. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't expected to be dragged into his world again so soon. By the time she arrived at the Boulder Country Club, the air felt different, thinner, sharper. Expensive cars lined the driveway. Well-dressed men and women clustered in groups under heated lamps, sipping champagne, laughing lightly. She didn't belong here. The truth of it pressed against her skin like ice. Daniel found her before she could retreat. He looked immaculate, controlled, unreadable. But when his gaze swept over her face, she saw something softer beneath. Worry. You came, he murmured. I wasn't exactly given a choice. He didn't deny it. Stay close to me. He guided her inside. The Hayes family was gathered around a long mahogany table, all polished silverware and polite smiles, until they saw Sophie. Victoria Hayes turned first. Her gaze took in Sophie's simple dress, her youth, her uncertainty. Disapproval cut across her face like a blade. This must be the girl, she said. How old did you say you were? 18, Sophie answered quietly. 18, Victoria repeated, voice curdled with disdain. Daniel, are you auditioning for a daughter or a wife? Laughter rippled through the table. Sophie's cheeks burned. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Not yet. Another woman leaned in, whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear. Didn't someone post a video of her last night? The one leaving a bar with some guy. Sophie stiffened. Honestly, a man added, swirling his drink. If a girl marries a billionaire at 18, let's not pretend it's about love. The humiliation crept over her like heat under her skin. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but Victoria raised a hand. Tell me, dear, she said sweetly, what does your family do? Are they respectable? Or is that also complicated? Sophie could barely breathe. She was back in that small Denver house, drowning under debt and disappointment. Stop, Daniel said suddenly. His voice cut through the room. Every head turned. She doesn't owe anyone here an explanation. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Daniel, she is my wife, he said, voice quiet but unyielding. And I won't stand by while anyone, family or not, tries to humiliate her. The room fell into a stunned silence. Sophie stared at him, stunned herself. She hadn't expected him to defend her, certainly not like that. But the moment shattered when Victoria's assistant rushed in holding a phone. Mrs. Hayes, she whispered, you need to see this. Victoria looked at the screen, then held it up for the entire table. Sophie's heart stopped. It was Emily's edited video. Sophie walking with a male coworker. Sophie stepping into a rideshare after a late OT shift. Cut together, manipulated, weaponized. A chorus of disapproval rose. Oh dear, so inappropriate. She's just like the rumors said. Daniel took the phone from Victoria without asking. His eyes darkened, a storm gathering behind them. Sophie, he said quietly. Is this real? No, she whispered, shaking. It's edited. I swear I didn't. I know, he said. And then he faced the table. She did nothing wrong. If anyone here has a problem with my wife, they can leave. No one blinked. Victoria's voice shook with fury. You are destroying your reputation for this. Girl, I don't care about reputation, Daniel replied. I care about her. The words hit Sophie harder than the humiliation. Her breath caught her chest tightening. For a moment she felt something like safety settle over her, warm, fierce, unexpected. Daniel took her hand. We're leaving. He led her out through rows of silent onlookers. Not a single person dared speak as the doors closed behind them. Outside, the cold air hit her face. Sophie trembled, not just from the weather, but from everything that had just happened. In the car, Daniel exhaled slowly like he'd been holding his breath for years. You didn't deserve that, he said. Not any of it. Sophie swallowed hard. You didn't have to protect me like that. Yes, he said softly. I did. Snow drifted across the windshield, quiet and gentle, so unlike the chaos swirling inside her. She stared out the window. Why? Why do you care so much? Daniel looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Something between grief and devotion. There are people in this world, he said, who deserve mercy, others who deserve protection, and some who I cannot afford to lose. His voice wavered ever so slightly. Before she could respond, her eyes caught something on the seat, between them a plain envelope. Daniel picked it up, frowning. This wasn't here before. He opened it. A single photograph fell out. Sophie gasped. It was the picture of her at 14, standing on a snowy highway shoulder, emergency lights flashing behind her, and beneath it a note written in jagged ink. She's back, and this time I won't let her interfere. Daniel's face drained of color. Sophie, he whispered, gripping the photo so hard it bent. Someone has found you. Her blood went cold. The world, already unsteady, tilted again. Daniel didn't sleep the night the photograph arrived. He sat in the dim glow of his office elbows, on his knees, staring at the picture of the 14-year-old girl Sophie used to be. The house was silent, but the tension inside it vibrated like a wire pulled too tight. Sophie lingered at the doorway, watching him, her heart sinking at the sight of the exhaustion carved into his face. Daniel, she whispered. He lifted his head. Shadows clung to his eyes. We're increasing security, effective immediately. No one gets in or out without clearance. She stepped closer. Who sent that picture? His jaw clenched. Someone who should have disappeared years ago. Daniel, she hesitated. Is this about my father? Silence fell like a stone. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something broke open inside his expression. Yes, he said finally. Your father was involved in the accident I told you about. He used you that night without hesitation. And now he's resurfaced. Her knees weakened and she gripped the back of a chair. She remembered flashes, screeching tires, cold air, her father's rough grip on her wrist, her own voice screaming for him to stop. Her breathing hitched. But why now? Why after all these years? Daniel stood, closing the distance between them. Because he knows you're close to me, and because he thinks hurting you is the way to hurt me. His voice cracked at the end. She didn't think Daniel Hayes was capable of cracking. Before she could speak, his phone vibrated. He answered sharply. What do you mean the cameras didn't catch anyone? He was right at the gate. A pause. I don't care, double the patrols, keep her inside the house. Her pulse quickened. Daniel, you don't have to lock me in. He turned to her, expression pained. I'm not locking you in. I'm trying to keep you alive. But by afternoon, while Daniel was on a call with the legal team, the danger crept closer than either of them expected. It started with the doorbell. Margaret opened it, calling out, Hello, who's there? But no one answered. She stepped outside, confused. Sophie wandered into the hall, frowning. Margaret. The wind blew cold and uneasy. Then a hand shot out from behind the pillar and clamped over her mouth. Sophie barely had time to gasp before she was yanked off the porch and dragged toward a dark van idling at the curb. Snow crunched under her shoes as she kicked wildly, but the man, her father, was stronger. Cruel. You thought you could run from me, he growled in her ear. You owe me a debt, and your rich husband will gladly pay it. Let me go, she screamed, voice muffled by his hand. He shoved her into the van, slamming the door. The engine roared, and they sped down the mountain road. Back at the house, Margaret screamed for security. Daniel bolted from his office, terror slicing through his composure. Sophie, he shouted, storming through the hall. Sophie. When he saw the open door, the fresh footprints, the tire marks disappearing into the snow, something inside him shattered. Activate Protocol 0, he barked into his phone. Send every team we have. Track the vehicle. Now. His car fishtailed slightly as he tore out of the driveway, chasing the only direction security could provide, an unmarked van heading east toward the highway. Meanwhile, Sophie sat tied to a chair in a decaying warehouse near I-70, her cheek throbbing where her father had struck her. He paced in front of her eyes, wild. That billionaire bastard destroyed everything. Now he'll pay to get you back. He didn't ruin your life, she said through clenched teeth. You did. Her father's face twisted with rage. He backhanded her so hard she tasted blood. Shut up. You ruined everything when you called the police that night. I was trying to save a man's life, and now that same man will pay for yours. He grabbed her phone, turning on the camera, and forced her face toward the screen. Tell him to come alone. Daniel, she whispered when the call connected, breath shaking. Don't come. It's a trap. He'll kill you. Her father ripped the phone away. Bring the money or she dies. The line went dead. Daniel's grip tightened around the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Hold on, Sophie. I'm coming. He found the warehouse 20 minutes later, thanks to triangulated signals in sheer desperation. Snow swirled violently as he barreled inside, ignoring the guards' warnings. Her father shoved Sophie toward the exit knife pressed against her throat. One more step and she bleeds. Daniel froze. His hands lifted slowly. Let her go. Take me instead. No, Sophie gasped. Daniel, don't. Her father shoved her aside and charged at Daniel, blade raised. Sophie screamed. Daniel dodged, grappling him, the two men crashing into metal crates. The knife skittered across the floor. In the chaos, her father lunged again, shoving Sophie into a wall. Her head hit the concrete with a sickening crack. No, Daniel roared. He struck back, rage and fear igniting something primal inside him. Within seconds, he had her father pinned until security stormed in and dragged the man away, still shouting. Daniel dropped beside Sophie, gathering her limp body into his arms. Sophie, please open your eyes. She didn't move. The world blurred. He carried her to the ambulance, refusing to release her hand. His voice was barely a whisper, hoarse and broken. I can't lose you. Not again. Not ever again. In the ER, doctors rushed around her. One stepped aside to speak to him. She's stable for now, but there's something you need to know. Daniel braced himself. She's pregnant. Time stopped. Pregnant. His breath left him all at once. Shock, fear, joy, devastation mixing so violently he couldn't speak. In the glass reflection beside him, Daniel saw himself a man trembling, terrified, overwhelmed by the realization that the woman he couldn't bear to lose now carried a life they made together. He pressed a shaking hand to the window of her room. I'm here, he whispered. Both of you. I'm here. Outside, where the snow kept falling, a figure watched from the parking lot shadows. Not her father, he was already in custody. Someone else. Someone Daniel feared far more. The man smiled thinly. Round one is over. Daniel barely left Sophie's bedside for the next 48 hours. The hospital room hummed with soft monitors, steady beeps, and the quiet inhale-exhale of the woman he refused to lose. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked charts. Security guards stood outside the door. But Daniel didn't move, not unless it was to press a gentle kiss against Sophie's knuckles or to smooth back her hair. When her eyelashes finally fluttered, he sat up straighter, breath-catching. Sophie, he whispered. She blinked slowly, the room blurry. Daniel. Relief hit him so hard he had to close his eyes for a moment. You're awake. What? What happened? She murmured. You were hurt, but you're safe now. His voice trembled despite his efforts to keep it steady. You and the baby. Her eyes widened. The baby? He nodded, brushing his thumb over her hand. You're pregnant. Sophie's breath faltered, her eyes filling with emotion, fear, disbelief, hope she didn't dare reach for. I didn't know, she whispered. I know. Daniel leaned closer. But I'm glad, more than I can put into words. A tear slid down her cheek. His instinct was to wipe it away, but she caught his wrist gently. Daniel, my father will never come near you again. The edge in his tone was steel. He's been detained. She exhaled a shaky breath. I thought he would kill you. Daniel's jaw tightened. He tried, and if he had taken you from me? He swallowed hard, unable to finish. Sophie squeezed his hand weakly. I'm here. I'm okay. For a long moment they simply looked at each other, no contracts, no lies, no walls. Just two people tangled in a fate neither of them fully understood. A knock interrupted the stillness. Margaret peeked inside, holding a small bag and looking unusually pale. Mr. Hayes, she said softly, there's someone here asking to see you. Daniel stiffened immediately. Who? Margaret's gaze flickered to Sophie, then back. She said her name is Dr. Harper. Sophie felt Daniel's entire posture shift. Tension rippled through him like an old wound reopening. Harper, he repeated, voice tightly controlled. Tell her I'm coming. He rose reluctantly, giving Sophie's forehead a gentle kiss. I'll be right outside. Don't move. Don't worry. But Sophie did worry, because she saw something in his expression she had never seen before. Fear. Dr. Harper waited near the elevator posture, sharp eyes calculating. Her presence immediately set off alarms inside Sophie's chest, though she didn't know why. Daniel approached her with guarded hostility. You're out of prison. Harper tilted her head. Early release for good behavior. You shouldn't be here. Oh, but I should. Her eyes gleamed. The moment I heard the girl was back in Denver, I knew you'd come crawling to her rescue again. Daniel's fist clenched. Stay away. Harper leaned in, voice lowering. I told you years ago your obsession would destroy you. And now look. She glanced at Sophie's room. You let history repeat itself. She is nothing like what happened before. Daniel snapped. Harper smiled a chilling smile. Isn't she young, vulnerable, attached to you, pregnant? Daniel's face blanched. Harper went in for the kill. You couldn't protect the first girl. What makes you think you'll protect this one? The air left Daniel's lungs. Sophie, watching from her bed through the cracked door, felt her blood run cold. What first girl? Daniel stepped closer, eyes blazing with fury. If you go near her, I will bury you. Harper didn't flinch. You can't bury what already haunts you, Daniel. And with that, she left. Daniel remained frozen, breathing hard, the ghosts of his past clawing at him. Back inside the room, Sophie pretended to be asleep when he returned. He settled into the chair beside her and slipped his hand into hers. You're safe now, he murmured. I won't fail you, not again. Sophie fought the urge to open her eyes, her heart pounding. Again, who did he fail before? And what did Dr. Harper mean by repeating history? She lay still, but her mind twisted into knots. Daniel wasn't just protecting her. He was protecting a wound he buried so deep he couldn't bear to let it bleed again. Hours passed. Night fell. Sophie stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to breathe under the weight of new secrets. She felt Daniel's hand wrapped around hers even in sleep, as if letting go meant losing her forever. But she needed answers, so she quietly eased her hand out of his, slipped from the bed, and tiptoed toward the file Dr. Harper had dropped accidentally or intentionally while arguing with Daniel. It lay half hidden beneath the visitor chair. Sophie picked it up. Her heart lurched painfully in her chest as she read the name on the first page. Case file Cassidy Hayes. Status deceased. Relationship sister to Daniel Hayes. Cause of death. Vehicular accident, potential homicide. Primary witness unidentified, minor female, age approx. 14. Sophie stared at the page, her vision blurring. 14. A witness, a girl who looked exactly like the one in the photograph Daniel kept hidden. A girl who looked exactly like her. Her breath hitched as the truth hit her like a tidal wave. Daniel didn't just know her father. Daniel didn't just remember her from childhood. Daniel had been searching for her because she was the only witness to his sister's death. Sophie sank into the chair, shaking. The man who held her so gently. The man who claimed to protect her. The man she was starting to fall for. He hadn't married her only out of debt or duty. He had married her because she was the only person alive who knew what really happened the night his sister died. And now someone else knew she was that girl. Someone who wanted her gone. But the most terrifying question of all whispered at the edge of her thoughts. If Daniel ever learned she remembered everything, would he still protect her? Sophie didn't know how long she sat there, gripping the file. Her breath shallow, her pulse thundering in her ears. Cassidy Hayes, Daniel's sister, deceased. Primary witness, a 14-year-old girl. A girl who looked exactly like her. A girl she had been. Pieces she had buried for years began to stir, shadows of memory broken. Flashes of headlights, her father shouting, a girl screaming, blood on ice. She pressed a hand against her forehead, forcing herself to breathe. She wasn't ready not to remember, not to confront Daniel, not to untangle the truth from her nightmares. And she wasn't ready to lose him. She placed the file back exactly where she found it and slipped into bed just as Daniel stirred awake. Sophie, he whispered, half asleep. I'm here, she murmured. His body relaxed instantly, as if those two words tethered him to sanity. Don't scare me like that, he breathed, squeezing her hand with a tenderness that made her want to cry. Morning came with a swirl of nurses and chart updates. Sophie played the role of patient dutifully, but her mind spun relentlessly. Daniel hovered protective and gentle, unaware of the storm building inside her. When the doctor entered around noon, Daniel straightened. "How is she and the baby?" "Both stable," the doctor said. "But Sophie needs at least 2 weeks of monitored rest. Emotional stress could be harmful." Daniel nodded, then looked at her with a softness that felt dangerously close to devotion. "You're coming home as soon as they clear you. Home." She thought of the warmth of his hand on her back, how he watched her sleep, how he had risked his life for her, then thought of the file. Her throat tightened. "Daniel, what if I don't remember everything yet?" He stilled. "You don't need to remember anything. You just need to heal." But that wasn't true. She needed to remember because whatever was coming for her was tied to that forgotten night. After lunch, while Daniel stepped out to take a call with his security team, one that sounded increasingly heated, Sophie was visited by someone she never expected. Emily Hart. Emily appeared in the doorway, a bouquet of cheap flowers in hand, and a look of forced sympathy pasted on her face. Sophie blinked. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Emily stepped inside as if entering a battlefield. "Believe me, I didn't come out of kindness. HR forced me. They said it would be good optics after the incident." Sophie tried not to laugh. "You mean the edited video you leaked?" Emily's smile flickered. "Okay, look. I didn't know things were this serious. I thought you were just some girl Daniel picked up. I didn't realize," she swallowed, lowering her voice. "I didn't realize someone was actually trying to hurt you." Sophie's heart skipped. "What do you know, Emily?" Emily hesitated. "The day before you were kidnapped, someone came to the agency asking about you. A woman, sharp eyes, cold smile, said she was checking on a family friend, but she wasn't HR or a client." Sophie's blood ran cold. "Dr. Harper." Emily stepped closer. "I'm not doing this because we're friends. I just didn't know it would go this far." Sophie studied her carefully. Emily wasn't kind, but she wasn't a liar either, not when fear trembled beneath her bravado. "Thank you," Sophie whispered. Emily exhaled shakily and left without another word. Minutes later, Daniel returned, tense, distracted. "Sophie, there's something I need to tell you. Security found." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw her expression. "What happened, Daniel?" she asked quietly. "Who's Dr. Harper really?" His face drained of color. He closed the door, lowered the blinds, and sat beside her, as if bracing himself. She was Cassidy's psychiatrist. Sophie's pulse hammered. "She worked with the family for years," he continued. "After the accident that killed my sister, she became obsessed with the case, and with the witness." The girl, he nodded. She thought the witness knew more than she said. She believed the girl saw the killer. Harper spiraled after the case went cold. She began stalking anyone connected. Eventually, she tampered with evidence, got arrested, lost her license. Sophie swallowed hard. Why would she come back now? Daniel's jaw tightened. Because she found out something she shouldn't have. Something about you. He didn't know she'd already seen the file. "She thinks you're the missing witness," he said quietly. "And she will do anything to force a confession." Sophie forced a steady breath. "Daniel, if I really am that girl, if I did see something, do you want me to remember?" His eyes softened painfully. "Only if you want to. I don't care about the case. I care about you." But she heard the unspoken. He did care. He needed answers. He needed closure. And she was the only person alive who could give it. Before she could speak, the door burst open. A security guard rushed in. "Mr. Hayes, your mother just arrived. She's demanding to see Sophie." Daniel cursed under his breath. Of all times. Victoria Hayes swept into the room before they could stop her, elegant, furious, and trembling. "Sophie," she said sharply, "I need the truth. Did your father kill my daughter?" Daniel stiffened, stepping protectively in front of Sophie. "Mother, leave." "No." Victoria's voice cracked as she pointed at Sophie. "That girl, she was found at the crash site. Cassidy died in her arms. And now you bring her into my home, into our family." Sophie stared, chest tightening. "I don't remember," she whispered. "Convenient," Victoria snapped. "Stop," Daniel growled. "You're upsetting her." "I deserve answers, Daniel," Victoria cried. "And maybe she does too." Daniel froze. Victoria's gaze shifted to Sophie, surprisingly soft for a moment. "Cassidy wasn't just my daughter. She was your friend. You two were together every day that winter. Don't tell me you don't feel something when you look at that girl. Sophie's breath caught. Together everyday friends, her and Cassidy. Memories dance at the edges of her mind, laughter echoing in hallways, a girl with warm hands and a bright scarf, the smell of peppermint cocoa. Victoria's voice shook. You were the last person to see her alive, the last person she spoke to. Please, remember what happened. Daniel snapped, Mother. That is enough, El. Sophie's voice trembled but didn't break. She's right. Daniel's head whipped toward her. Sophie, I need to know. A tear slipped down her cheek. Because whatever happened that night, it's coming back for us. Outside the hospital window, storm clouds rolled in dark and heavy, and somewhere in the city the real killer listened, waiting, smiling. Round 2 was about to begin. Sophie insisted on being discharged from the hospital sooner than the doctors preferred. She needed clarity, not fluorescent lights and restless sleep. Daniel protested, of course, but she placed a trembling hand on his cheek and whispered, If we keep hiding, whoever's after us will keep hunting. He couldn't argue with that. By late afternoon, the car climbed toward the Hayes Mountain estate. Snow blanketed the pines in heavy silence, but Sophie felt anything but calm. Memories flickered at the edges of her mind like broken film frames. Cassidy's laughter, the smell of peppermint cocoa headlights spinning across ice. The house was quieter than usual when they entered. Too quiet. Daniel tensed immediately. Security should be here. Sophie felt the first sting of panic. Daniel, something's wrong. He reached for her hand, squeezing gently. Stay close to me. They moved deeper into the foyer, past the gallery wall, past a sweeping staircase until a soft metallic click echoed through the air. Daniel reacted instantly, pushing Sophie behind him. Show yourself. A woman stepped from the shadows. Dr. Harper. Her hair was tangled from the storm, her eyes gleaming with a brightness that made Sophie's skin crawl. She held a small pistol loosely in her hand, as if it were nothing more than a remote control. Daniel Harper said calmly, You always did underestimate me. Daniel's tone turned lethal. How did you get inside? Oh, your guards. Harper shrugged. Sleeping. Tranquilizers are such beautiful things when used correctly. Sophie's heartbeat thundered. What do you want? Harper's eyes slid to her unblinking. The truth. The one you stole. The one you buried. Daniel moved to shield Sophie completely. You're not touching her. Harper laughed, soft and sorrowful. Protective, aren't you? Just like you were with Cassidy. The name hit the air like a breaking window. Sophie's breath hitched. Cassidy trusted you, Harper continued. She loved you both. She believed friendship could fix anything. Sophie felt dizzy. Images rushed forward at Cassidy handing her mittens when her fingers turned purple. Cassidy showing her how to braid a scarf. Cassidy crying quietly on a cold December morning. Harper took a step forward. Do you remember now, Sophie? Do you remember what happened the night Cassidy died? Daniel shook his head. Stop. She doesn't need to. Yes, Sophie whispered, gripping his arm. I do. The warehouse, the kidnapping, Dr. Harper's arrival, none of it compared to the weight of the memories finally bursting through. I remember, she murmured. Cassidy called me that night. She said she was scared. Someone was following her. Daniel's face went pale. We met on the road outside the old bridge. Sophie continued. She begged me not to go home. She said she'd seen something dangerous. She said she trusted only me. Tears blurred her vision. Then headlights appeared. A man stepped out. Cassidy pushed me behind her. She tried to protect me. Who was it? Daniel asked, voice breaking. Sophie looked at Harper. Harper smiled gently. Go on. It wasn't my father, Sophie whispered. Everyone thought it was him, but it wasn't. The man who grabbed Cassidy was Harper behind Daniel, gun raised, eyes burning. Your husband, Sophie finished. Daniel's breath stopped. Harper's face cracked, grief and rage twisting together. Cassidy married a monster, she said. He abused her, controlled her, and when she tried to leave, she came to you two for help. Sophie staggered back. It wasn't an accident. No, Harper whispered. It was murder. Daniel's voice was raw. Who killed her? Harper's hand trembled around the gun. My ex-husband. Cassidy's husband. After she died, he vanished. I knew one day he'd come back to finish what he started. Sophie felt her knees weaken. And you thought it was me. You thought I could identify him. You can identify him, Harper said. He never knew you were there. You're the only one who saw him clearly. Daniel swallowed hard. Where is he now? A hollow laugh escaped Harper. Here. A second figure stepped into the foyer, a man with icy eyes and a scar across his jaw. Cassidy's husband, the real killer. Sophie felt the air leave her lungs. Daniel stepped forward, rage burning through him. You're not leaving this house alive. You can't stop me, the man hissed, pointing a gun at Sophie's chest. And this time, no one is saving anyone. Everything happened at once. Daniel lunged, the gun flashed, Harper screamed. Sophie ducked, heart slamming against her ribs. A struggle ensued, blurs of fists, shouts, bodies crashing into furniture. Harper grabbed Sophie, dragging her behind the marble pillar as gunfire cracked through the air. Then a shot. A thud. Silence. Daniel stood over the man, disarmed, bloodied, breathing hard. Security rushed in moments later, followed by police. Harper collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I thought hurting Sophie would bring justice. I didn't know she was the only innocent one left. Daniel looked down at Cassidy's killer, then at Sophie. His eyes softened with a tenderness that hollowed her out and rebuilt her all at once. It's over, he whispered. Sophie shook her head, tears falling. No, Daniel. It's the beginning. He moved toward her, cupping her face gently. You remembered, he said softly. And you still stayed. I'm not running anymore, she whispered. Not from you, not from the truth. Daniel kissed her forehead as if anchoring her to the world. I thought I married you to protect you, he murmured. But the truth is, I need you more than you know. The snow fell quietly outside, soft flakes gathering on the windows like blessings. Sophie leaned into him finally, willingly, fear melting into something far warmer. Love wasn't what she expected when she agreed to the marriage, but it was what she found, and this time she chose it. CTA Natural Emotional. If you've made it this far into Sophie and Daniel's story, tell me, would you have trusted Daniel after learning the truth? Comment your thoughts, like the video if you want a part 2, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this one. Your support helps these characters and many more come alive.